I'm going to talk about Stylista.no, or maybe I should call it the Stylista now. That's a thing, I think. The Stylista. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I work here at Pyths, and I've been doing Drupal for about 5 years now. I've been working at Pyths for a couple of years, like Christopher, and if you don't know, we have offices in Copenhagen, actually 2 offices in Denmark, a very big one and a very, very small one. And then we also have here in Oslo, where Erik and Sanna works, and in Moldova as well. An interesting country, quite far away from here, where we have some colleagues as well. And I know that I think the Oslo office is looking for developers, so there's an opening there if anyone is such inclined. Pyths is like a full service place, so we also have we actually also have WordPress development going on, and we have design and analytics as well. And we also host our own sites, so we have a full hosting and operations. So we're actually 90 people employed, about 90 people. So anyway, I'm employed as an architect, a systems architect there, and my job is doing like project bootstrapping and estimations and sparring with the developers, with the project leads, code reviews, and so on. I also do development actually. So. But enough about that. Stylista is a what's with the toolbar down here? Let me just fix that, actually. So is this going to work? This way, right? Okay. No. Okay. So Stylista is a fashion website, obviously, and it's one that was built last year, and I just need to find some notes here. Oops. So my plan now is to tell you about the features on the site. This is not going to be like an insanely technical presentation, but I'll definitely tell you about the main features of the website, and about this project as a whole and the challenges that we sort of faced both in Drupal and as a team on the project, of which I was the tech lead. And also some stuff that came from this whole project, Drupal-wise, and like learnings that we made from the project. Yeah, and then, you know, unless you like ask some really technical questions, of course, then it won't be that technical. Stylista is also a responsive website, of course, and it caters to this target audience of young women. So we fit right in as developers, of course. But we had a long sort of introduction and trying to get a grasp of this audience that we were developing for, and it was a very interesting project, which I think personally we sort of pushed Drupal to a place that not many projects do. So a little bit about the features. One of the main things of this site is that it wants to gather a lot of users, authenticated users, who interact on the website. And they interact with each other, and they also interact with the content on the website. The content being articles, blog posts, fashion lookbooks, and of course also products. The site has around 650,000 products available. So there's a huge mass of physical fashion products represented on the website that the users can interact with. I'll tell you more about that. But they interact with it by loving content and by following each other or following the bloggers on the site. And they have this profile page, each of them, which sort of puts on display the content and the users that they follow. So they have this profile that sort of represents their interests. So this is like a very advanced or dressed up version of the user profile page in Drupal core. And another feature on the site is that of a style test, which is a way for users to tell the site about, or tell the system who am I. They answer a set of questions. Like an obvious question, like which city are you? But also like what sort of clothing do you like and which style are you, and so on. And based on that, we calculate some recommendations for them on which other users are similar to them, or which of the bloggers they should perhaps follow based on this information. So the style test is meant to be something that users begin with as they enter the site, and sort of bootstraps their experience on Stylista. So the products are a huge cornerstone centerpiece of this project, of this system. The products in Stylista are imported from various affiliate providers like Zalando and Nelly and My Wardrobe, all these product or web shops that I've become very well acquainted with. You probably have never heard of them, but a lot of I think people in this target audience know these pages, these web shops very well, and Stylista and the client have they have these affiliate agreements with the web shops. Thus, we import the products to Stylista, and they display them on the website, and are able to channel the users onto the web shops, and also to to gather information about these products and which products the users are interested in. This is the main shop search page or filter page on Stylista, and with some facets and search possibilities. So it's similar to a normal web shop. However, you can't buy anything on Stylista. There is no purchase option. If the users want to buy the products, actually buy them, not just like them, they are directed to the affiliate web shops and their websites. So this is from the back end. We have integrated with and heavily extended the feeds module to be able to import this amount of products and update this amount of nodes as often as we must. So the Zalando feed, for example, contains like 50,000 products that we must update each night. In case the prices have changed, some products are on offer, or new variants have become available, or some products may be out of stock, and so on. So this goes on all the time, and we have the ability to add new providers as the client signs with new affiliates or the opposite. It was quite a challenge to get a system like this to perform, because we sort of got to a point with the feeds module where it sort of was unwilling to collaborate with us in terms of the scalability that we needed and the performance that we needed. But I'll also tell you a little bit more about that. Another feature on the site is these fashion lookbooks, which consist of products as well. The editors on the site can put together some products that fit together and create these lookbooks, and the users can then like them. And again, this is an option and a way for the users to interact with the content, and to like it, and let know what sort of products and fashion products they enjoy. And then finally, I think finally at least, we have the bloggers. So the bloggers are another cornerstone of this system and of the platform itself. They are, you may know some of them. These are the Norwegian bloggers. Lund is quite famous, I believe. And they come from a personal blogging universe, with their own brands and so on, but are employed by or were employed by Stylista and were sort of pulled into the Stylista platform and the Stylista universe to blog under the Stylista brand. That of course meant that many of their followers sort of came along to Stylista and to experience the Stylista universe when we launched. And there are like 5 or 6 or 7 bloggers on the Norwegian side, and they create an insane amount of content. I mean, these girls, they write. It's like they do nothing else, and they create an amazing amount of images as well. The image data. I have some numbers coming up. So the information that the amounts of data that these people create is quite amazing. They also have these really passionate followers who like to comment all the time on their content, and that's fine. but also a challenge actually in terms of performance. But I think the biggest challenge came after we had actually launched the whole platform, or at least towards the end, because there was no sort of agreement with them about how the editorial experience for the bloggers was going to be. And these girls came from WordPress and were used to WordPress and how WordPress worked. So when they saw Drupal and how you create and edit content in Drupal, they were slightly disappointed. So we also in turn worked with them and with the client to create a better user experience for the bloggers when they edited content. Oh yeah, adverts, also an interesting feature. So apart from all the banner ads and so on, which they can put in and manage from an external system, they actually have an advert functionality that we built for them within Drupal, where many of the content types can be configured and set up as adverts on the site. That's all great. They just turn up like that, and they have a little logo which signifies who the sponsor is and so on. However, they had some very specific requirements in terms of how to place these advertisements, particularly in the shop, as we see here. What they required was they had to be able to take any product, for example, and set it up as an advertisement. They also required that they could position it anywhere in the list of search results on the shop page. So for the desktop view mode here, the shop search results are made up of 5 columns, and in this screenshot it's 2 rows, but I think eventually we set it up to 3 or 4 rows. So that's like the default, the base view, 5 by 4. And they needed to be able to sell a sponsored product like this one and position it in columns 3, row 2 and 5 perhaps, in the category, shoes in this price range with the color blue. And then, and that was how their ad department sold these adverts. They could sell them for any category, any position in the search results, and they could also, they had to be scheduled, so they would automatically be turned off when the ad agreement ended. This is quite tricky to achieve with a regular view. Also because you had to give the editors, or actually the ad department, give them complete control about how to manage these advertisements, which position they would be put in. And if you just take a product, if the user searches or filters by anything, you get a list of search results. But then you have to take into account that you need to inject these adverts into the list of results from the view. And then the pagination goes completely out of sync because some of the products are in excess. So you have to add them to the next page of views results, which might have a separate set of adverts. Page 2 might have had some other adverts sold. So to build all this logic and figure out how all this context information was sent around and how the editors actually, it was crazy. But eventually we managed to build it for them, and of course they only used it for a month or something, and then they found out that they actually didn't need that feature after all. So that's how it goes sometimes. So we host this platform ourselves, as with most of our other clients, and it's a very it's a generic setup. I think quite basic. We use Solar a lot. We use Solar for everything that we could get our hands on, simply because this platform caters to a lot of authenticated users. So even though we have varnish in front, varnish doesn't help us when people log in. So instead of querying the database all the time, we used Solar as much as we could. I think today it's not just one Solar, but it's one Solar server, but actually a cluster, or the Solar Cloud, Zookeeper, all that fancy stuff. So it's a larger setup than it was. Also, I don't know how many of you have tried to use SQL slaves efficiently in Drupal. It's very difficult because Drupal core always directs all its queries to the master, even though you set it up in settings PHP with a master and a slave. But the queries that you write yourself from custom modules, you can tag them to be sent to the slave. So as long as you're just reading from the database, that's a good idea. So we do that a lot, and then the rest is standard stuff. And these pictograms are completely official. I'm sure that's how things are made. So the numbers, so like I said, 1.3 million nodes in this platform, and most of that is products. A product actually consists of a product master and a product variant, so at minimum 2 nodes for each product, because the same dress might be available in different variations, and we need to be able to connect them and display, for example, a color selector or a size selector for the end users, which actually flips between the variants. But that's how we built it. But of course, as it turned out, there were almost no variants of any product at all. Or maybe there were, but the affiliates weren't able to actually transmit those to us through feeds. So it's almost a 1-to-2 ratio. 35,000 blog posts. As I said, this goes right a lot. And 750,000 media assets. Most of this is imagery, and a lot of it comes from the blog posts, but of course the products also have a huge amount of images and the lookbooks as well. On this project we were in fact 14 developers. Well, that's those of us who had more than 50 commits to the project, so there are actually more than that who've worked on it, but not as much. Of those 14 developers, it was half and half divided between front-end developers and back-end developers. So this was a very front-end heavy website. There's a lot of stuff going on in the front end. We wrote about 20 custom modules. We use about 120 contrib projects. And a time frame displayed as a git commit log, something. So as you can see, we started working in earnest on this project around the end of May last year, and about mid-September we launched. And there was some, people were on holiday and so on, or they left. But there was a very firm deadline for this project, which we met in spite of summer holidays and everything. So that's the features and the project as a whole. We certainly faced some challenges working with Drupal on this project, and as I said, one of them was that this was a project which turned out to require support for a lot of authenticated traffic. And as we all know, Drupal is not the most performant of systems, and if you have a huge amount of users who will be logging in to your site, which is and the site has to deal with a lot of data and a lot of information processing, which on top of that is very user-centric. I mean, we have a lot of information which is personal for this specific user, like which products do you like, which users do you follow, what style are you, what are your results for the style test. And this information is used contextually around the site to give recommendations for like other products that you might like or other users that you might want to follow. And also because the users interact with the content all the time, they like the content all the time. They click like. This in turn gives a lot of rights to the database, or we have to store this information quite often, quite quickly. And this is also a challenge for systems such as Drupal. You have to ensure that you don't do a full Drupal bootstrap each time. You have to do a small write to the database. So we struggle with that because initially, when the project was defined, this was not a big a factor. I mean, it turned out to become so. We had to create some very inventive solutions, some custom caching solutions within Drupal, interacting with the entities that we were using and interacting with some of the contrib modules that we were using in order to basically cache everything, cache the hell out of it. But at the same time, being careful not to display stale content or stale information to the users. Another challenge was how, as I said, importing these huge amounts of information. Initially it was unknown, how much data can we get. We were counting on getting like a delta list of content or products that we needed to update, but the specifications given to these affiliate providers meant that we couldn't actually count on that. So we had to build a system that imported the full product database every night and did a full scan of everything and decide, to determine for each of the products, is there an update for this product or not. Also, some affiliates might actually display the same product, or send us the same product, the same pair of shoes, or the same shirt or dress or something. And we had to, there are some logical constraints, some logical things that we had to take into account in order to display the products correctly. So as I said, we sort of got to the limits of the feeds module in that respect, and ended up building our own, extending the feeds controller classes essentially and the parsers to handle this importing much more cleanly and logically, and in a way where we could control that it would happen in the off-peak hours. So it was scheduled, and it was able to resume the import if it hadn't finished the previous night or whenever it was scheduled for. Then it would continue with the next lists when the next time frame came. This was also a very front-end, as I said, heavy website. There's a lot of interaction and interaction patterns that we had to fulfill with this design that we were handed. And that also meant that we had to pay attention to the performance on the front end, and Drupal and JavaScript handling can also be a challenge. The JavaScript event handling and so on has to be managed quite cleanly. There was a point where we had implemented responsive images on the website using the client-side adaptive image module. I don't know if any of you know this, but this module is for Drupal 7, and it's similar to what the picture module does today, where it provides some markup with a set of alternating image styles for each of the breakpoints, and then using JavaScript, it renders or picks up the correct image. However, the JavaScript for this module turned out to actually for each image that was rendered on the site, it actually triggered all the JavaScript events on the whole page for every image. So that sort of made quite a few iPhones crash and so on until we figured that out. But all the JavaScript and all the front-end markup and the styling on this project sort of had a ripple effect where even small changes, unfortunately, could have quite wide-scale effects, particularly towards the end of the project. So we were lucky to have some great guys. I don't know if you know Snip-on from Sweden, and other great people who were able to work with us. And as I said, these bloggers had some expectations, as it turned out, that the editorial experience would be quite a lot better than it was to begin with. They came from WordPress. So over time, we've adapted the experience to be better. And I think they are content now, although some of them have moved away from the Drupal platform. They're still under the Stylista brand, but they've actually moved back into WordPress again. But we actually implemented recently a system for both the editors and the bloggers, similar to what Christopher just talked about, this pass module. And the idea is to utilize CK Editor and CK Editor plugins, widgets actually, to create a better editorial experience. So that's sort of the main idea. What the editors required and the bloggers as well was like full control and full flexibility in terms of pasting in any sort of random JavaScript widget, iframe markup, anything that they could find on the internet. Because they simply needed to make their content much more dynamic than what we could provide with just fields and input filters in Drupal. So the bloggers, to begin with, just had access to full HTML. That was sort of they couldn't wait for us to think up a good, robust solution for them. But eventually, we sort of talk to the client about how can we solve this in a way which is both safe, maintainable, and which gives a good editorial experience. So based on experiences and input from Christopher, we built a widget for CK Editor, which lets you paste in your JavaScript or your iframe or whatever you need, and the CK Editor will treat it as a widget, as a block that you can move around. It won't break, when you edit the content around it, and it's really quite efficient and safe at the same time. So that was a great addition to their editorial experience. It's not. It might be wrapped in a module, but actually it's mostly just using the widget functionality of CK Editor for. Yeah. So we not only, we had, this was a huge team and a huge product, so we had other challenges as well with the project, which were interesting to overcome. As I said, the affiliate providers who provide these feeds for the products were quite a battle, and I can only recommend that this is that these third-party integrations are completed and cleared first in a project. Get them straight as the very first thing, because we had many other integrations with many other data providers or external integrations than just these affiliate feeds, and each of them were a pain point in themselves. Another challenge, not as much a problem, but a challenge to overcome, was that the design was handed to us and it was final. So we had very little sort of room to make changes to the design or the user experience in order to achieve maybe better performance or achieve a more flexible Drupal solution or something like that. and unfortunately it was not a mobile first design, although this is a responsive website, but it was more like mobile last, unfortunately, and that gave some problems in terms of the massive amounts of markup required to achieve the desktop version, which then had to be sent to the mobiles in the responsive on the mobile versions of the site. So in retrospect, it might have been better to come up with a different way of achieving the mobile experience for this platform. It was also a challenge, an interesting one, to meet the deadline, because there was no room for. I mean, there were nationwide television spots all going up on this particular date. So it was like there was no room for. Can we push it back a week or not? No.
What would they have done if it didn't land?
They would have killed us. I'm pretty sure. So.
The old-fashioned way.
So yeah, there was no option really. Yeah, and but as in all projects, scope creep is also a challenge. And as tech lead, I had to be like aware of this, and we all did, also the project leads and so on.
Men vi har ju gott grundlag för motstånd. Så vi kan säga, nej, det blir reklam på TV.
Yeah. We could say that, you know, it's going to cost something else if you need this feature. Yeah, and we did that often. But of course, good clients are also able to see and understand when you know when it's a good idea to push back some requests to, you know, after launch or something. So and also as always, we had to be aware of not over-engineering everything. It was, I mean, I like to stick to contrib and use the APIs as much as possible, and because it helps maintainability, and it allows you to also give back if you find bugs or if you find issues or performance problems with the stuff in contrib or in core. But sometimes, particularly when you're on a tight time frame, you just need to get things done, and that in turn can lead to technical debt and based on over-engineering of the stuff that you've built for them. So we had to be very careful with that in particular. And as I said, we have offices in Moldova, so they worked with us on this project, and they actually also came to Denmark and stayed with us for some periods for some of the sprints. But Moldova is a very different country from ours and from Scandinavia, and very far away from this group of target users, target audience. So I think they might have had some difficulty, at least to begin with, to understand the exact use case and, you know, the exact target audience and the purpose of a website like this. However, we made huge efforts to bring the team together from the beginning and talk about this project and get ownership of it together. But of course, they also worked from Moldova, and not just on this project, but on any project. If you are separated, you know, over large distances, that's always just a challenge on top of everything else. So I mean, we solved that obviously with you know, remote stand-ups and lots of communication, real-time communication, and proper task management and so on. But I think one of the main challenges there was actually Skype, or just getting a clear voice connection over the internet. That's apparently still a problem in this day and age. Yeah, so teams in general were just it was a huge bunch of developers, and we're all people, and we're all different. And we all have, you know, opinions on how things are done in Drupal and in people and in the world. So just trying to manage that and put all that, you know, that irrelevant crap out of the way and just get stuff done. That's also a challenge when you're a team of this size. So some of the stuff that came from this project. As I said, we did a lot of custom caching and for this project, and eventually the outcome of that was actually a module called Fast Cache, and it's a Drupal project which has, I think, absolutely no usage at the moment, but it is quite clever, although a little bit specialized, because it is what we had requirements for, but abstracted into something that anyone could really use. But that also means that it supports, you know, it's panels and Ajax views and flag module. So it's like a weird trio of stuff that you might or might not have use for. But it's quite clever in the sense that if any of you know Wim Leers, he talks a lot about caching in Drupal 8 and how cache tags is like the new thing. And basically it means that Drupal becomes aware of the context that you're caching in and can expire stuff all around Drupal and all around your site that should be expired when a node is updated. It expires everything related to it automatically. As it is today, you have to know exactly what needs to go away when you expire stuff. You know, if you use a teaser somewhere, or if your template file renders, you know, a little counter which displays how many comments are in this particular node, or how many people have flagged this content, and you render that using Ajax. You know, you're sort of on your own. So we solved some of these issues and packaged it up in something that we thought, you know, somebody else could use, and I think it turned out to be quite good. It still needs some work on the varnish side of things, so that it can expire not only custom cache bins in Drupal that you set along the way, or, you know, not only the pane caching in panels, or the Ajax cache for like Ajax-based views pages and so on, but also actually expire the same stuff in varnish. The flag module is that's the way we implement this following stuff, and this this love button is using the flag module. And of course, different things happen when you use that functionality as an anonymous, non-logged-in user and as an authenticated user. So different things need to happen and need to expire when you're logged in and when you're not, or when something is cached for a particular user and for the anonymous user. So all that is taken care of and handled in this Fast Cache project. Also maintained by one of my colleagues from Moldova who worked on this whole project. So another thing that came out of this particular project was that my co-tech lead, Tom, who was sort of the front-end tech lead, the tech lead for all the front-end guys and girls. He and I sort of got together and formulated a wish for future projects to be more like content-oriented, because thinking about content first when you create new projects also means that you, as a developer, you're able to inject more more of your requirements and opinions on the code and on the development much earlier in the cycle. If you have this this pure waterfall and model where you have the specs and then the design and then the development, there's no iteration and there's no room for interaction between the different phases. So we sort of thought that doing more content first stuff would make sense, and we sort of looked at Brad Frost and all his talks about this subject, and he has some very opinionated pieces about it, but he also has some great quotes like this one. And it's true, you know, people don't give a shit if it's responsive. They need to use your website, and they need to use it for what it's, you know, for the purpose it has. And if it doesn't fulfill that purpose, then screw it. You know, you can't use it. And if the website is great and beautiful, but it takes 20 seconds to load, that's a problem. It doesn't fulfill its purpose. This is like 2 years ago, he said this. Another quote from that time from him is, people's capacity for bullshit is rapidly diminishing. Which is also very, very true. You know, if you think about it, we have so many options, so many gadgets, so many stuff around us that you know, our capacity for waiting for things to load is like, it's very, very small now. And that's why there is this focus on not only server-side performance but also front-end performance, because those things go hand in hand. And another thing he said in terms of this, this content first analogy is content is like, you should think about content like it's water. So content is water that you pour into your website, and it can take up all the nooks and crannies, all the corners, and it can appear in many places. But it's not like hard stuff that you put into specific places on the site. Content can appear anywhere, so you need to think about content first. The reasons we came up with for this is, as I said, it's good for performance, and it lets the clients focus on what the website provides, which is content, which is the core of it. It's also, you know, the logical way to build responsive websites these days. We also got into the more technical aspects of it, like we'd like to do more of progressive enhancement than graceful degradation, which is, I mean, basically if you can make your site work and appear nice without JavaScript, and then if people have JavaScript enabled, it looks even better. You know, that's progressive enhancement, and that's, you know, almost impossible to achieve these days. But I think it's definitely something to strive for. Also because it would be really fast, and it's future friendly as well. You know, you never know what sort of screen your website will be displayed on in 2 years. You know, somebody might have some watch or washing.
Website look on a lamp.
Yeah, you know, or a washing machine, or, you know, whatever. Something will definitely have a browser somewhere which will display your website, and it'll look like complete crap if everything depends on XML, HTTP requests or very complex JavaScript and so on. And there's this 80-20 rule. You know, if you are able to achieve this effectively, then you might be able to achieve 80% of the functionality, you know, using Contrib and so on, but maybe only use 20% of the resources or the budget, and effectively that just leaves you a lot of space to make stuff even better for the clients. So at Pyths my colleagues at Pyths worked out a new strategy, or improved the existing strategy rather, and incorporated this content first mindset much more closely into new projects. Other stuff that I sort of feel and thought about is, as a team who is going to work on a technical project together, you have to not assume that everybody knows or thinks the same as you do. You need to, you might have some very close colleagues that you know, but maybe you've not worked together, or maybe you haven't worked together in this context. So you need to discuss the problems, you need to discuss the methods, you need to have everything in place so that towards the end of the project, when the shit hits the fan, you don't have to discuss all this. It's just settled, and you've agreed to do things in a certain way, and that means that while you're sprinting or developing or determining how to do stuff technically, you don't have to discuss all of this. How to employ Git, what's your branching strategy, or how do you actually reset your development side, or how do you deploy code to the pre-production environment, or how do you name functions, or whatever you can think of. And it's in projects with even a few people, it's very valuable. As I said, the team that built this was not particularly fashion oriented, but I think we sort of got into the mindset of this group of users who are very interested in fashion and brands, even though we were mostly just a bunch of guys coding, not very fashionable at all. But as I said, we got in early, and we sort of adopted the mindset of the client. We understood the case, and we understood the users and their needs, and we looked spiffing while we did it, of course. This is an example of a document that I authored for this project. Related to, as I said, writing everything down and doing everything, having a document which simply is the place where this is written down, and it's not generally not up for discussion. I mean, this document evolved obviously all along as we went along. We did adjust our procedures and everything, but we had a place where basic things like the Git workflow were written down. Even though we have one in the company, which is what we use, we wrote it down anyway. And even though we were required to follow the Drupal 7 style guidelines, we wrote it down anyway. Because, don't make assumptions. Then, as you know, towards the end of the project, everything goes haywire, and eventually somebody created a Trello ticket like this. I just wanted to show you. This is how we envisioned our recognition when we had finished the project. My colleague Tom thought that all the colleagues in the office should stand high with the swords above their heads, like a medieval wedding, and they should be applauding everybody and calling his name occasionally. Anders would like an ice cream. I thought we should be sent to Mexico, please. That didn't happen. I don't understand why. Thomas, he just wanted this basically. So that it didn't quite happen that way, but we were certainly recognized for our efforts. Also. Sorry?
Altså, han siste, han ville ha den enkleste tingen. Bare å bli med til Drupalcamp.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a very tall guy who let his hair grow too bad.
It didn't work out quite that way.
Okay, I think we have to wrap up because we have got word from Gabul and he's ready to do the testing, so we'll be starting in 15 minutes.
Okay.
So there will really no questions now. Just take a break, everybody, and be ready in 15 minutes. Thank you very much.